Hello. So we are going to do just I'll try to make my videos shorter, and nobody wants to listen to me for 20 daggone minutes. But we're going to do a little paint and sip. Get your favorite drink, tea, coffee, tequila. Anyway, that is my favorite cocktail, and I'm enjoying it. We have Downtown Downbeats, I think is what it's called, in my area tonight, and it may even be the last one of the season. They'll have music, and so I'm going to go enjoy that with my cocktail. Well, it'll probably be gone by the time that happens, but I'll fill it with water and sip. But I know I said I wasn't going to try to teach you how to paint because I don't have that kind of knowledge or skill, and I don't. But I can give you the knowledge that I have. So I did pull out one of my styrofoam plates. I do try to avoid, I truly do use an egg plate. More often than not, I use a rectangular shaped glass palette, but it's kind of covered in, paint that'll take me a minute to clean off, and I just wanted to show something that, fairly flat and on a white surface. So anyway, that's what's going on here. So what I wanted to show you and tell you is, and I still don't have the white. I would, I have white at my studio office at the house, and I think I grabbed every one of them up and took them back there. So I just need to get one back here. I've been using a light yellow. It's kind of a cream color in place of my white. But anyway, what I wanted to tell you, and also I will go on and be honest with you, I usually use a darker blue than this. What I really like to have is a primary yellow, a primary red, and a primary blue, a dark brown, and a white. And you can use those colors to make whatever you want for the most part. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you can't buy pre-mixed colors that are super vibrant. You can do that. This is how I started, and even though I have tons and tons of paint, I tend to go right back to doing this really, really often. So now, of course, I'm going to want some orange or whatever. So I think we probably all know this, but I'm going to just go on and say it anyway. Take some of our yellow and some of our red. And I will say that often, the red, it'll kind of overpower the orange, particularly if you don't know the mix of the pigments that you're using. When I say the mix of the pigments that you're using, I mean, sometimes things will just dumb you down to whatever's darker. So, or come real close to it or get overpowered by it. So sometimes you may want to mix not equal parts to get the color you want, but we all know yellow and red gets us orange, right? But let's say you've done that and now you want to put some highlights of the same tone in. You just take a little more of your yellow, and I'll be honest with you, I'm using this sparingly because I'm not going to full out paint tonight, but you can see I have a lighter color, and you can just, what we started with was our three primary colors, and we're going to make secondary colors, but you can go on and make tertiary colors and beyond, whatever's beyond tertiary. I'm sure I learned that at some point, but I've brain dumped it. I don't remember. And just make whatever color you want for your painting. Now, I'm going to just clean this brush out better later. So let me grab something else to mix another color. And took a little red and a little blue. Latest the violet. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, for sure. But, you know, sometimes we kind of get to thinking that we just have to have lots of things that we don't have to have because we can do it with what we have. I said what we have a whole lot. Let's use this brush. We'll go on and make us a green. I used quite a bit of blue there for that green, more than I would probably have scooped out to begin with. So you'll see a little clump of it that I just didn't mix in. Now you can see that's just easy peasy. And you can go along and add more red to, you know, either of these. Make it a more red. You can put more blue into the violet to make it more blue. You can do the same with all these to make a more blue-based color or a more red-based color or a more yellow-based color. You can absolutely do that. I will take just another quick second to say, I don't want to use any of those brushes. I'm just gonna wipe this one out as best I can. That when I do, and I have, like I said, I have a lighter blue here that I normally use. I'm using cerulean blue. Right here, it's a Master's Choice. I grabbed at Hobby Lobby. But I actually like a darker blue usually. Just something with a little more depth. And if you take some blue and you take some brown and mix that up. And I do use a fairly dark brown when I do this. And I think, you know, I like the darker blue because it gives it more depth. But you can see I made a dark color there that I would use for my blacks. You can change that, you know, that's clearly not black, but you could change that if you had a deeper blue and a deep brown. You can make it, and your eye will perceive it as black, but it just doesn't have the same void that full out black has. It has just a little bit more something in it, and I do that most often. Now, as I was saying, you can use white to lighten it to any of the colors that you make. You can add this darker color in small amounts to any of these colors and deepen them down. I mean, not truly the yellow necessarily. Well, you can. You just have to use a tiny bit. So it's sometimes it's the ratio of what you're mixing together. Also with the white, if you have white in there, you can mix white with the not black that I made and make grays, and you can make that, you know, depending on the ratio, all types shades of colors. So the other thing I would talk about is, I think, you know, you probably all know about, you probably will hear it called complementary colors. I sometimes call it vibrating colors, but it's basically, I've pretty much made a color wheel here. I mean, it's a messy color wheel, but you know, if you have a color wheel, what's across from the color wheel is basically the neutralizing color for each other. So, you know, I have a lot of green on this brush, and what neutralizes green is red. So if you mix things that are across from each other, it neutralizes that color. So, you know, you get something a little more neutral. That still has a little bit more, this one right here, it still has a little bit more green to it than a full out neutral, but for sure it's like a, you know, an olive green or something, you know. So you can also mix things that are, you know, not just things that are side by side to get a secondary color, but you can mix things that are across to neutralize. You can actually come up with very neutral colors once you get used to doing it. Or you can just have some that's toned down so that you get a more muted color, like this green is more muted than this green. The other thing I would say is if when you really get to playing with mixing your own colors, just remember the lighter color. If you wanted to get, and I won't get the ratios right with this. I don't even have really the colors I would use. But let's just say you wanted to try and make a brown. Now, you can't get the depth of the one that out of the tube. That's why I just go on and use the tube. Let's just say you wanted to make a brown. You would use what's about the equivalent of 3 parts yellow. I smeared it right over here from my pile over there. 2 parts red. So basically, you know, if you were putting dots down, just dots squeezing out of the tube, you put like 3 dots of yellow and 2 dots of red and 1 dot of blue. And mix those all up and you'll get, you know, a sort of brown color. And like I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I know that my color is, I didn't even come close to trying to get the dots I would get if I were trying to. But so that's the color we have right up here. And the red kind of shows through on the plate, I think, more than, but it's actually a fairly brown color. And then from that, if you had your white, there it is right there. If you had your white, you can make lighter browns. So with that said, I'm going to stop this video so that I don't have too long a video. It's still kind of long, but I'll stop this video and I'm going to do another one and talk about those levels. So I know that you know what I just did from kindergarten, but sometimes we forget that, you know, we don't have to go buy the whole array of colors. We can do that ourselves. At least you can have what you need to create. And at the end of the day, that's just what it's about. You know, you want to let your creative juices flow, and just, you know, it doesn't have to break the bank, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be that simple.